If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then this, the UK Property Market Stats Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I'm joined by a special guest. This week it's Bryan Mansell. We'll come to Bryan in a second. Why should you spend your time watching this show? Well, everyone in the UK, or just about everyone, is obsessed about the property market, and everyone likes to know what's going to be happening in the future. We hang our hats on such indexes as the land registry figures or the nationwide or the Halifax. But I don't know if you're aware, ladies and gentlemen, the land registry data is looking at sales that took place 8, 9, or 10 months ago, which means that we're looking at data from, quite frankly, the start of 2024. The Halifax and nationwide are looking at house prices and other such awesome things from 2 months ago. We're looking at data from last week. And by knowing that, we can get ourselves an unfair advantage of what's happening in the property market, what's happening to house prices, and all the other metrics which everyone is obsessed about. We are looking at week 43 of 2024, which, just for the purposes of everyone, is the, let me just pull this up, Monday, the 21st of October, all the way through to and including Sunday, the 27th of October. As I said at the start of the show, I'm always joined by a special guest, and returning back is one of our favourite people, but I do say that to everyone. But one of our favourite presenters who knows his onions is Bryan Mansell. Bryan Mansell was huge in the game when it came to Countrywide, when Countrywide were a force to be reckoned with, part of the golden age of Countrywide. And now he runs a firm called Gazelle, helping estate and letting estate agents and homeowners cut their fall-throughs. He knows his onions, ladies and gentlemen, so listen to him because most of the industry do. Bryan, thanks for joining me today, mate.
Very lovely to be here, Chris. Thank you for inviting me back on, and particularly as we've just had the budget, which has been interesting. So I'm sure that will the tentacles of finance will work its way into our show today.
Indeed, we're filming this, ladies and gentlemen, on Wednesday, the 30th of October, just after 3:30. So it's only just hit, and I'm sure that, as I said, will come out. So for those of you who have not watched the show before, ladies and gentlemen, this show is roughly split up into two. The first half is that we look at the UK property market. And we start off with properties coming on the market. We talk about price reductions. We talk about sales agreed, fall-throughs, net sales, exchanges, and house prices, and just general trends in that direction. Then the second half is that we focus on a town or a city and focus on that estate agent's market. And now this week, we are focusing on the town of Fleet in Hampshire. Now, if you are a Fleet estate or letting agent, you will find that absolutely fascinating because we will be doing an analysis of how good you are. If you're not from Fleet, by all means, do switch off. But what I would say to you is this. If you're an estate agent or letting agent, but especially an estate agent who's finding it really hard at the moment, trying to beat estate agents that are overvaluing or undercutting you on fee, and you're a damn good estate agent, we're going to be showing you a piece of kit which is independent that could prove that you are a much better estate agent than your competitors. So if you are suffering from those problems of overvaluing or cheap fees, then do watch that element of the show, because the bit of kit, you could have that kit in your own office. And we're not here to sell this piece of kit, actually, although both Bryan and myself are huge fanboys of it. But this bit of kit will prove that you are a better estate agent, which means that you will lose less listings, get more listings, and at higher fees, and help people move more often. Okay, Bryan, shall we dive into those stataroonies?
Yeah, let's take a plunge into the stats pool, shall we?
Right, you know,
It's making me sound like it now. I'm sorry.
So you should be able to see the full graph, but can you just confirm that before we kick off?
Oh, good. Yep.
So as always, ladies and gentlemen, for those that met our regular viewers, we start off with listings. I spend a minute or so just discussing them, and then we go over to Bryan and ask for his input. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, the first off we can see is the number of listings. And this week we have listed as a country 30,078 properties. Okay. And if we compare that with other week 43s, which is normally towards the end of October, you can see that we are pretty much level of where we're slightly ahead of most months apart from the fabled year of 2020. The average price of a property coming onto the market is 430, can't get my words out today, mate. £434,472. Year to date, we have listed 1.5 million homes, which, and I'll just pull up the stats, 8.2% ahead of 2023 and 7.5% ahead of the average of 17, 18, or 19, which are considered in the industry more normal years. This is my favorite graph in the listings. This shows where we are, and the white line is 2024, and we can compare ourselves to, as I said, the years of 17, 18, 19, and 23. And again, you'll notice that the number of listings is in a falling situation, which is, as you can see other years, is what is expected in the last quarter as we go on to Christmas. And again, we'll just remind ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, the property market is pretty cyclical. In the fact is that we have we take off in January, we have a dip for Easter, we have two dips for the spring bank holidays. We always have a dip for the August bank holiday, and then we drift off nicely towards Christmas. Okay, over to you, Brian.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I was surprised at, to be honest with you, was the last few weeks of October we've had, and I suspect, like it does every single year, the public start to begin to think that, okay, this is, our chance of moving by Christmas, even though it is remote, probably from about August these days. The public's perception is that September is the last month to get your house on the market if you've got any chance of moving by Christmas. Before, people genuinely don't tend to like to have people wandering through their homes during the Christmas period because of its, the decorations and so on and so on. But I thought, actually, because for me, looking at the statistics over the last couple of weeks, particularly in the last 2 weeks, one word sort of jumps out at me, which is confidence. More, and we said, I think, going back to the beginning of the year, we expected a normal year this year, free from any entanglements with mini budgets and rising interest rates too quickly, high inflation. And as inflation began to come down, I think more people got a bit more confident in the housing market. But I thought we might have seen a few more weeks of that in October before it tailed off around about now. So that's my only comment. Just surprised to see that the dip has occurred. As you can see from the graph from 2018, which is a year that we've run very similar against, we've just sort of dipped below 2018's numbers in the last few weeks.
Yeah, fair goes. I mean, but then at the same time, 17 and 19 were much like, I'll take that. I mean, the magic thing is this: it's a classic game of demand and supply. And really, quite frankly, this is the stuff coming in. It's the bit that's coming out, whether she withdraws or whether she exchanges, which is the most important. But everyone needs listings. So keep an eye on that one. It's not bad at all.
I think, I would just say, I think the key thing from this is, whilst is not to be too downhearted if you're starting to see your number of listings dropping each week as an agent or as a member of the public. But the focus for me, and certainly what I'm hearing in the industry, is that carrying stock is very high. So registers of for sale stock is still quite strong, very strong, in fact, stronger than it's been for a while. Well, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, so 750,000 stock, not far off, still available. So that should bode well for pipelines being, we may see a dip in terms of, new properties coming to market, but certainly, those that are still choosing to stay for sale need real attention in the coming weeks before they start to, you don't want a mass exodus of the market between now and Christmas, because what that will do is bounce prices up quite high in the early new year, which we've got to be careful of.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. We don't have a graph with withdrawals, but basically, in a nutshell, you can see here the number of stock. So all of the yellow lines are the end of September. This is a monthly graph, so we'd have seen it last week and we'd have seen it the week before, but we always bring it back because it's such an important statistic. Is that withdrawals are going to be going through the roof in October and November when people realise, they think, well, I'll take it off for Christmas and probably look back at bringing it back in the new year. All the yellows are the end of September, so you can compare apples with apples. So do expect your stock levels to reduce probably in the order of around 15% in the next coming 2 months. Okay.
I'm going to say this a lot during this show because to me, it's vital that if nothing else, this message comes across to the people watching if they're an estate agent. And I mentioned it already, which is confidence. Now is the time of the year where confidence needs to be given to the public who are on the market that the market isn't going to completely collapse over Christmas. Now, people may want viewings paused, but there is no reason that if somebody is needing to sell their property or wanting to move, there is absolutely no reason for them to withdraw that during the Christmas period. And you will hear people say, as they do every year, I don't want viewings between now and the end of, between 20th of December or whatever, when our decorations go up. But the point, the confidence that needs to be given to the public is the public are used to that. They're experiencing that. And what better way for someone to look at a home when there's Christmas decorations up? It's a happy time for most people. It's a positive time. And so sellers will naturally fear that their house looks a little bit, over the top with all the decorations, so on and so on. But actually, it does not mean to say people shouldn't keep viewing. So the message is install confidence everywhere as much as you can. And don't wait until you start seeing the withdrawals happen or you start getting into December. Start the process now.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, a nice stat for you, because I do like my stataroonies, is that if someone says, well, we'll take it off the market and potentially put it back, remember, you have a 50% greater chance. Now, actually, let me just work out exactly what that chance is, okay? Well, I'll do it now. A property is, with the first agent, 59% chance of sale. The second agent, 44% chance of sale. So we'll just work that one out, ladies and gentlemen, whilst we're on the show, because that's the way we roll. Oh no, there you go. Hold on. 50 divided by 44. So you have a 34% greater chance. Okay. And do remember, ladies and gentlemen, that 93% of all residential sole agency sales take place with the first agent.
Okay? I think it's also worth pointing out that 68% of statistics are rubbish.
Those are from 20EA, so they're gold, mate. Okay.
That was a depression. That was a joke.
Bless him. One of the Boldock brothers said that basically, if all statistics are rubbish unless it should be challenged unless Chris Watkin says it, or they've come from 20EA. Yeah, because there's no point in publishing something, if you especially put your name to it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's move on. Now, this is important because this is we're now moving on to price reductions. So in terms of nice price reductions, we're dealing 20,270. The average price of a property being reduced is 393,700. And in terms of the percentage of our sales stock that we are reducing, we are at 40. This is a monthly stat. We revise this every month. So we'll hopefully get a new one next week when we do week 44. But we're presently reducing 14% of our properties. Doesn't sound a lot, especially when, remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are only getting paid on 53% of homes that we are listing at the moment for the last couple of years. 14%? I mean, that shows that we're working the stock. It should be higher.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that the agents are working stock. It's showing that, as you can see from the graph, points it out. Like you say, it's factual. It's not great. It's not bad. It's better than it could have been. But it always comes down to two key factors, as it always has done, that will directly affect the lives of people wanting to move that are relying on the advice of their agent to do so. And that is the speed of that reduction and the value of that reduction. It's always those two things. Those two things drive the market when there's stagnant, when the market is stagnant slightly.
And again, I've gone on record many times is that I think a big issue I don't like is the splitting of the neg and the valuer role. And I think, there is a place for the neg and it's important, but I don't believe that it is the neg's role to manage the property. I believe it is the valuer lister's job, and it's the valuer lister's job to keep, if you've overvalued it, to bring it down, not leave it to Floss, who isn't trained.
Yeah. You're right, but what it comes down to in terms of what would be classified on one of the world-class estate agency podcasts or shows we sometimes listen to would be in the category of great agency, would be to prepare a customer for a likely adjustment in price when the property is listing.
Oh, 100%.
Not 100%. Surprise them with it after 6 weeks when they haven't heard anything for 3 and they haven't had any viewings and their calls are going unanswered, to suddenly ring them and say, right, well, progress is going to need you to cut by boom. And I've said many, many times, and I will continue to say that if you're comfortable with what you're asking to come off the price, it's not enough.
Indeed, indeed.
So remember, confidence, and this forms part of that, is knowing your customer, talking to your customer regularly, engaging with them. It's a journey with them. It's a strategy for you to move an asset class from your from your inventory to your bank. And to do that, that involves regular communication with a lot of facts and recommendations and advice and so on and so on, not silence and then trying to hit somebody with something.
Indeed, indeed. Right, let's move on to sales. Just before we do kick off, again, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever do see one of my statistics and you think that looks wrong, then I would ask you just to challenge me on it, because it's important that, I'm not infallible and I do sometimes make mistakes. So I just think that was important that if you do see something and you're not sure, please do flag it up to me, because even I make mistakes. Right, let's move on and look at gross sales. So this week, in terms of gross sales, we're on 25,851. Okay. Which, when if you look at that graph, apart from 2020, which was a crazy year, that's really, really good. The average price of a property the average asking price of a property being sold subject to contract. So this was the asking price when she went sold subject to contract, 367,175. The cumulative year to date, we are on 1,071,000, nearest damn it 500 properties, which is 14.8% ahead of 2023. So our sales pipelines are filling up quite nicely, and 8% ahead of 17, 18, and 19. And there's the graph there. The white line is 2024 and all the other years of 17, 18, 19, and 23. There's your confidence, mate.
Absolutely right. Totally right. And why I believe that confidence should stay relatively strong, certainly throughout this year and into next year, is the opportunity we've got for further changes to interest rates and a consistency with lower inflation. Certainly coming from the budget in terms of their forecasts, we hopefully are going to be away from nasty inflation, jumps to sort of 3, 4, 5, 6%. Certainly in what the Labour government have suggested today in Parliament or from the Chancellor. So if that is the basis, there should be, confidence in the market for purchasing and lending, going forward for the foreseeable, which is great, really positive.
The residential sell-through rate is the number of properties that we're selling out of our stock. Okay, so at the moment, as I said, this is a monthly figure. So we are shifting 15% of the properties of our stock. Okay.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not great, is it?
Yeah, but again, this is. I think we need to take this as a slight pinch of salt. Let's look at the 21, 22 figures. Everyone thought 100% that we were putting on the market was shifting. It wasn't.
No.
It was up at 30. And I think that's more of remember, it's how many sold subject to contracts of the stock you have that month, and at the moment, 15% isn't brilliant, but it's.
Well, you've got 100% of your product, right, in a shop, and you're only selling 15% of it. You'd have to ask yourself some questions, right?
Yeah, but where it's interesting. Again, the other side of the coin is that we exchange, therefore get paid on 53% of the properties we actually put onto the books. Interestingly, the Australians, they think 80 is low, 80%.
Yeah, I think most people that don't work in a frontline estate agency business would look at that and say, so hang on, so you've got 100 properties for sale, 100 people wanting to move, and you're only achieving sales in 1 month of 15, and you're putting on the market 20. So, which, from an economic point of view in the business, you might think, great, we're bringing more commission in than we've just transacted on. But wouldn't you, at what point would you say, Christ, 15% of our stock, that's quite low? Because the 100% of the value of your properties for sale equals, let's say, 100 grand. So you've got £100,000 worth of opportunity, and you're only actually you're only actually arranging sales on 15 of that.
Of which
and
down to about 11 or 12, unless you had something like Gazelle, mate, where it'd be much, much lower.
Yeah, but I think generally, and this is the point we keep talking about, don't we? And and my other colleagues, your other guests that you have on these shows, At what point do we say, okay, look, let's stop a minute. We've got 724,000 units available in inventory, and we're arranging sales on that match. And then when you look at the week in isolation, we're selling through at 60%. So if we are able to achieve, and I appreciate that might be not be 60% of the houses that listed that week, and there's lots of other factors that, economists don't realize, someone's not going to arrange a sale on their property if they haven't found one, because blah, 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 blah. And some people might be testing the market, and what estate agents have for sale marked on their stock sometimes is there to, keep them pleased. We've done 20, but realistically, actually, we've only got 10 motivated sellers. The other 10 are speculative, or we're keeping that one on just in case, they might at some point in the future decide they want to sell. There's lots of this. But ultimately, the question is, well, what can be done to knock those percentage points up consistently? Because marginal gain generates gain. That's the point, and gets more people moved. So I think, yeah.
I mean, again, whilst you were just talking, again, a gross sale. So we've listed 1.5 billion, we've gross sold 1 million, and we've had just under 600. It's 585,000. 585,000 properties withdrawn and sold this year.
Right.
Okay. And that number will go up because it always does in October and November. Okay. And December, because everyone says, oh, I'll put it back on the market with you next year. No, damn well, we're going to go to the second agent. Oh, bless. Right. Okay. Let's come back to this graph here. This is the magic graph, which shows the average asking price of a property coming on the market and the average price that the property sold subject to contract at. So that was the headline price. We don't know what they actually sold for, but we know we've said plenty of times on this show that the Hamptons research always between 1% and 2% below the asking price, apart from the years of 20 and 21. So the gap there, we'll just pull that up. Let me just pull up this, is 18.3%. Long-term average is 16 to 17%. Again, always happens. That lump there is central London. Everyone coming back from their holidays in Provence, but fundamentally keeping an eye on that trend. There's always a difference. And again, for those who have not watched the show before, people say, well, why is there a difference? Lower priced properties have a higher propensity or higher chance of selling. Therefore, that will drag their average down. So the gap is what we're looking for. 18%, we're quite happy as long as it's below 20. It did get to around 2025 earlier in the year, around here, but it just narrowed up. Those are the average. These are standalone weeks. See, the turquoise is the app. So these are the standalone week 43s since 2017, and that is that same graph back to 23, but on a week by week basis. Okay, let's go to fall throughs. So fall throughs this week, we're hovering around that 6,000 mark. The fall through rate is 24.6. And the percentage of sales pipeline is again hovering around the 6% mark.
I had a very interesting comparison this week with football and estate agency, and I won't bore people with talking about football, but in football they measure data a lot, and it's much more prevalent now than it's been for certainly since I can remember. And there's statistics that a lot of people talk about on football programs and podcasts and so on called expected goals, XG it's called. But if you've heard of that, no, okay. So every single game, every single half of a football match, and every single full-time game, the statisticians at Opta produce what is called an expected goals ratio, which is how many big chances were created during that match and how many goals were scored. And typically, if a team is dominating one other team, their expected goals ratio is high. So did they score the goals that they were expected to score? And quite often they don't. So it's called XG. And it dawned on me that actually it's very similar to to pipelines. Expected sales, for example. If you put 10 sales in your pipeline, your expectation of sales to go through to completion is probably 75% based on your statistics, maybe a bit higher or a bit lower, depending on where you are, and so on and so on. So actually, what football clubs do and what coaches do in football teams, they work a lot on the back of their expected goals ratio. Why didn't they score that amount of goals? So they will work on the fact that the team has created the opportunity, but somebody or a group of people haven't executed the opportunity. So there's a similarity there with agencies. If your expected sales is 75% of what you're listing. How do you make that 80%? How do you make it 78%? How do you make it 85%? You're not going to make it 100%, but how do you improve it? And that comes through a lot of things. First of all, understanding that is what is your expected sales ratio as a business, and actually what steps can you take, what gains, marginal gains can you have to improve that expected sales ratio? Because ultimately, you can't play a football match for longer than 90 minutes and extra time, of course. You can't play it over again to try to get more chances. You've got to make the best of that period that you have. So if you've got a sale in your pipeline, how do you improve its odds of getting through to exchange and improving your expected sales, expected exchanges from the opportunities that the business has created? Because a sale agreed is only an opportunity to generate revenue. It's not the done deal, as everybody knows. So agents working now during this period of time on how do we improve our expected sales ratio from the sale we've created is going to be time well spent. And of course, that will lower this rate.
Well, I mean, again, let's just remind ourselves, 24% of the sales. So again, we've got two metrics here: gross sales and fall throughs, and the fall through rate is the fall through, the number of sales as expressed as a percentage of fall throughs. So therefore, if you've got 10 sales and 2 fell through, that's a fall through rate of 20%. Therefore, we always give that second metric, which is percentage of sales pipeline, because again, sales in doesn't necessarily have any reflection on what's coming out. So it's the size of the pipeline. Good to see that the general trend is downwards since 2017, but still 6% of your pipeline each month isn't good. And if we could get fall throughs down to single digits, which products like Gazelle with reservation agreements, other firms are available, then honestly, guys, I mean, I was at the ICG approved at event at Twickenham, and there was two agents on there that were basically saying that reservation agreements are game-changing stuff. As long as the person who, it's important that your supplier teaches, guides, and supports your team to not treat it as a barrier. You'd agree, of course, you're going to agree with me, this, Bryan, because I'm talking about your firm. And again, I'm not giving any.
No, it's not a promotion for that.
It's not a promotion. But the magic thing is, don't just say, let's do reservation agreements. Your team need to be bought into it. And if you sell it the right way or get people to buy it, your fall through rate will go from 24% to single digits.
Yeah.
Honestly,
or it doesn't change, or you've got to put more sales in and list more property and get bigger price reductions to affect more sales quicker to improve your business.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this, whether you are a corporate, whether you are an independent, one-man band, one-woman band, if there is one thing that you should seriously consider, well, I'm going to say two. The one thing I would seriously consider is reservation agreements. And there are get out of jail cards that if you assume they're not there, they are. And the other one, which is a game changer, is get solicitors instructed on listing. If you can sort those two out, you will fundamentally change your estate agency. And if you're an employee, whether you work for a corporate or an independent, ask your bosses, why are we not doing this? And if any of you come back saying sellers won't do it, bullshit.
Yeah, I would just caveat that with the second point you made, which I, by the way, wholeheartedly agree with. And that is that estate agents this is the time of year to think about putting out to tender your referral contracts for next year, especially around conveyancing. Because if you choose a conveyancer that is not happy to open a file until a buyer is found on a property, then you're going to completely waste your customers' time, and your sales to exchange timeline is unlikely to change. So you really need to sort of, get into the detail, have the drains up on your conveyancing partners, the ones that you recommend, and understand their process. If you are presenting a seller to them at the point of listing and not sale agreed, are they going to actually do any work? Are they actually going to get information, get contract papers prepared as best they can?
Get searches.
Well, there's always a grey area. But what are they going to basically do before you find a buyer? Because actually, some conveyancers firms say, yeah, we'll take the seller, but they'll actually do nothing until a buyer is found. And I understand the commercial reasons why that they often hide behind in terms of legal reasons. But also, if they're not, well, then you should think about moving to a firm that does. If that is something that you want to be recommending in your 2025 proposition that is valuable to a seller, because it is.
You will get your sales through quicker and you'll be paid on more of your sales.
Oh, your
Okay.
customers will thank you because you'll give your
And
customers a better
and you're
experience.
absolutely right. And your customers will thank you as well.
That's the critical thing.
Right. Okay. Let's now move on to net sales. This is gross sales less fall throughs. And again, the white line here. And again, ladies and gentlemen, anyone watching this, I always make this offer. Please, if you would like to use these graphs internally or at valuations, I am more than happy for you to download them free of charge and use them at valuations to show what's happening to the market. What I do say though is this, ladies and gentlemen, is that please don't publish them on social media. And the reason I say that is that my daytime job is that I'm a ghostwriter. I write articles about local property markets, and I do give these graphs to my clients to publish themselves as a bonus. So I do ask that you don't publish them on social, but feel free to download them and use them on your files. Because at the end of the day, remember, ladies and gentlemen, 36% of 10,000 vendors last year in the Property Academy survey of 10,000 people who were on the market. Why did you choose your estate agent? And 3,600 of them, 36% said because the agent demonstrated their local property market knowledge. Well, this is national property market knowledge on top. This is brilliant stuff. Of course, I'd say that, but there you go. So year to date, we are on 820,791, which is 5.7% of 5% above 17, 18, and 19, and 17.4% ahead of 2023. Remembering, ladies and gentlemen, these numbers do not include new homes. So again, we ended on 1.1 million sales. I think when we add new homes at the end of the year, and we won't know this until probably April, May time, we'll probably end on 1.2 to 1.25. Okay, which again is a nice, healthy property market. As I said, net sales, as I said, 19,404. These are really good, mate, aren't they? I'll have this is
Confidence. Everyone should have confidence in the market. That's the point. It's a good time. It's
look
okay.
look how far we are ahead of the pink line, which was last year.
Yeah.
So we are going in, and we'll just remind ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, that's our pipeline. So our pipelines are full, and you can say, well, properties are taking longer to sell. Yeah, they're taking 19 weeks. Again, not a lot of people know this. That's down a week from last year. Okay. And they were taking 17 to 18, 19 weeks in 17, 18, and 19. So fundamentally, that hasn't changed. Now, why is a completely different story, but we haven't got time to discuss that. We have discussed it many times on different things, not now, but pipelines are full, which means Q1 won't be so bad for estate agents, will it?
Well, not if they get them through. That's the point. So,
okay, which comes back to what we were saying before. Just a couple of anything else on that? Anything else on the net sales? We'll just have gross sales.
I think it speaks for itself. It's a good market. It's better than it's been for a long time, like you say, particularly on sales, which ultimately is the second biggest moment that matters in an agent's life after listing, selling, and then completing or exchanging. The numbers look quite healthy, so reasons to be cheerful.
I mean, look, 21 was a great year, and we are almost identical. Yeah. A couple of graphs, which I know you like: gross sales as a percentage of listings and price changes as the percentage of listings. All good stuff there. Anything? I don't know if there's anything you want to say on that.
No, pretty good. A well-trodden path, I think. Pretty good.
Again, we show this every week. It gets updated every month, so we should have an update. But in terms of why is this important? The pound per square foot at sale agreed, which is the orange line, matches the land registry almost identically 5 or 6 months later. So therefore, if we want to know, again, if you want to know where house prices are going, ladies and gentlemen, we just follow that orange line and then add 5 months, and it is almost perfect. So that means by watching this show, ladies and gentlemen, you can foretell what's going to happen to the land registry with a very, very high level of confidence. A Pearson correlation coefficient of 0.92. One is 100% perfect. So 92% is pretty darn good. So watch that. Right. Okay. Bryan, that is the end of the first part. Anything you want to say? Remember, you've got a conclusion at the end as well to have a go for. But is there anything you want to say before we go to Fleet in Hampshire?
No, not at all. No, all good. That hasn't already been said.
Okay. In that case, then, ladies and gentlemen, let us now go to Fleet. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So we're using a piece of kit called Insight. Insight is one of many platforms that 20EA produce. 20EA are the firm that produces this platform. This platform itself is available both on a town, regional, or national basis. And both Brian and myself are huge fanboys of it. Okay, the kit itself is available to buy from 20EA, the Insights platform. I don't know what I do know what the costs are, but I'm not going to tell you because I'm not on commission. So no need to mention my name in any way, shape, or form. But Brian and myself are massive fans of it because this is Rightmove Plus on steroids, strapped to a rocket ship with lasers and glitter balls coming out of it. And remember, even if you're not from Fleet, ladies and gentlemen, please do have a look at this bit of kit because you can do it on your own town and it will show you how good you are and where you need potentially improvement. So the purposes of this, ladies and gentlemen, we are, like as I said, looking at fleet. And predominantly looking at residential sales because there's a lot more data. We will be touching base on lettings as well towards the end. All the data, as I said, has been provided by 20EA. If you have any issues with the data, please do contact 20EA directly. They are not perfect, pretty darn perfect, but they're not perfect. So if you've got any issues, but basically they are the gold standard of property data. So let's kick off and let us go to fleet. So Brian, just for the purposes of fleet, the postcodes are GU51 and GU52. Do you know fleet at all, Brian?
I know it very well. Yeah.
Good stuff. Right. Okay. So what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we're just going to spend a bit of time. And Brian, you just cut across any time when you see something you like. So I could just confirm I've got that you can see the graph on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. So the first thing we're going to do is look at new instructions, and we're going to start off with McCarthy Holden. And we can quite clearly see here that their market share in 19 and 20 was hovering around the teens. Then in the 20s, it's gone up to around 25. And then we've had a drop down into the 20s and teens in the last year. Um, so it looks like they've done really well, that they improved, but dropped off. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I know a lot of these businesses. I don't know the details of the staff inside, but McCarthy Holden were a very strong independent, well, are a very strong independent agency on the end of Fleet High Street. I can't explain the drop off. Traditionally, that happens with a change of managership, change of staff. I don't know. I can't explain why they've suddenly dropped off, or it means that the competitors have got significantly better quicker.
Let's have a look because again, I think this is important. So the average price, as I said, is 490. We can tell you here. So this is the 1st of Jan 2019. That's what we're looking at, ladies and gentlemen, to October 24. And the average price that's come on the market in Holt in those 5 and a bit years is 493. McCarthy Holden at 580. So they are middle to upper. They're more. It sounds like more of a Marks and Spencer's style in terms of on their pecking order. So we'll have a look at the upper quartile in a second. Let's go and look at Bridges.
I wonder, Chris, what would happen if you changed the date on the top left to just this year?
Well, we'll have a look
How
at that.
dramatic that list would be from where it is.
Well, let's just have a quick look now. Okay. So it looks like Bridges have. We're going to look at this separate. We'll see the growth, but
Yeah, so what you've
McCarthy.
got there is you've got essentially, and this is an interesting lesson for the people watching, is you've had 4% of market share erosion in a very relatively short space of time. When you said on the previous graph, look at the drop off, that accounts to over 4%.
Yeah. So if we're looking at the whole 5 and a bit years, McCarthy had an average of 20. Bridges had 13. Romans had 9. Mackenzie Smith 8.75, 6.5 now. Selbon 8%, 14%. So it looks like Selbon's have picked there. So let's whip that back and let's just go back to where 19 and we can give a more of a better flavor. But okay, so here we go. So McCarthy Holden. So again, ignore the spike because that was 2020. There's a general uplift there from in the 20s for that. Let's just bring that back. So we've done MacArthur Holden Bridges. So bridges have increased. That's really good from an average of 10 to around 16, 17%. So, okay, let's go and look at Romans. Romans are dropping from around 15, 16% to around 6, 7%.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Smith. Mackenzie Smith dropped slightly, not much. Again, that big spike does affect the scale a bit. Selbon, as we knew of it, increased. So again, we can ignore that. Looks like so they started early 2019. Have been growing slightly. So well done, Selbons. Nicholson's, and there's a slight element of growth there. Waterford's. Looks like there's a downward drift, but held it, now moving up slightly. Hamptons, check for houses. Now they're going, ladies and gentlemen, we're dealing with much smaller numbers now, so the numbers are going to get a bit spikier. Let's go and look at Chancellors. Looks like I'm very much guessing here. They opened up,
Yeah.
and then they looks like that. I don't know. I mean, that's pretty good. Could have been a free offer, couldn't it? Not doing much now, though, are we?
No.
No. Okay. Vicaries, Carson's, Purple Bricks. That's interesting. Yeah. Purple Bricks, Heart. Just look at that, Carson's. That's interesting. That as I said, they've been really, really good, but then they're not so good recent. Yeah, interesting. I think that
They're not in fleet, I don't think, anymore.
No, Gascoigne Peas.
Used to be back in the day, like a lot of stories across the country, they used to be the number one agent a long time ago. But the staff leave and then they set up themselves and then they take their market share and nobody fights back.
No. Okay. All right. Let's just have a quick look at upper quartile there. So let's go. Let's see who the big boys are. We'll go million. Let's have a look. We'll just wait for that to kick in. Oh, here we are. So here we are. So again, these are very actually. I'm going to go 750. That's just the numbers are way too low just to get anything.
Yeah. Fleet's market, I would suspect, without being disrespectful to people who live in Fleet, is probably 2 million and below.
Well, I'm doing 750 there now, 750, and it's still spiky as hell. So I've got to take that with a slight pinch of salt. Is Fleet known for posh houses?
There's a couple of areas called the Blue Triangle, and another one which I can't remember, which is relatively highbrow markets, but Fleet itself is not an upmarket region, I wouldn't say, or
okay.
Town.
All right. So we get a flavour. There really isn't an upper quartile agent where Savills are going in. No. Okay. Right. Let's just have a quick look at stock levels, and we will. There is October's. Hold on. There we go.
Agents in Fleet will cover a lot of areas, a lot of outlying villages where there is very much an upper quartile, but they won't be GU 51 or 52. They'll be the outlying villages. There's a lot of gentrification on the outskirts of the Fleet region, which is where you'd find all the upper end. Okay,
this is interesting because this is breaking the norm. Is that 2019 and 2020 there are an average of 620 properties for sale. She dipped down to 342. This is end of September, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. We always do the numbers at the end of the month. Dropped down to 342, and now we're hovering around the 525 mark, which means that you're slightly below the more normal years of 2019. We always look back at 19. If you remember from the show, we are quite a bit ahead of we are about 25% ahead of stock levels compared to the average years of 17, 18 and 19. And we're 20% below. So stock levels are quite low compared to pre-COVID levels. So that's particularly interesting. This particular graph here shows you the split of the bandings for all properties going back, but you could actually change the dates and it will show you where the splits are. And again, I won't go through the individual agents simply because they do kind of match the listings levels.
Yep.
Okay, so that's that. Let's move on to the next graph here. And this is my favorite graph here. So the first thing, and again, Brian, just have a quick look at price changes and fall throughs while I just talk to the ladies and gentlemen. Just have we got a snapshot of that? Okay, right, here we go. So it's so important not to focus on new instructions and set agrees. I know they're important, but there is absolute pure gold in here that a lot of people would miss, and I think it's important we flag this up, ladies and gentlemen. It's these four columns here, exchanged and withdrawals. Okay, so bridges in the last year, because we've changed it to the 30th of October 23 to the 29th of October 2024, have, if we add these two numbers up, 115 and 111, so that's 224. So 224 properties have left Bridges estate agents' books with postcodes in those two postcode areas. And as we know, we only get paid on our exchanges. So therefore, the exchange percentage in this column here is where the true gold is, ladies and gentlemen, because this shows how successful an estate agent is. What percentage of the properties that left your books did you get paid on? And Bridges were on 50.88, McCarthy Holden 56, Selborne at 63, Nicholson's at 60, Waterford's at 47, Mackenzie Smith at 54, Romans at 66, and Hampton's at 43, and Labron Homes 60. The average in the town is 51%. There is quite a mix here. You know, if the average is 51 and you're over that one, that's great. But what concerns me slightly with Bridges there is that they do have a low exchange ratio compared to their competitors, McCarthy, Holden, and Selborne, where they're 56 and 63, and Nicholson's at 60 correspondingly. If I was Selborne estate agents and going up against, let's just work our sums out on that one. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not criticizing in any way, shape, or form. I'm just looking at the stats. But if I was, say, Selborne's, let's just do this, 63.23 divided by 50.88. If I was up against Bridges, I could say to the homeowner, Mrs. Miggins, you're 24.27% more likely to get this house shifted with me compared to that other agent. Now, as long as you frame it the correct way, you're not slagging them off, then that's a very professional thing to do. And therefore, this is where the beauty of this bit of kit comes in, is that you can take this out and say, here's the stats. It's not me giving you some estate agent BS. Can you see these stats? Gold, isn't it, Brian? Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because I'd be shutting a couple of these if I was in charge of them, if that's their performance for a year. And certainly saying that the opportunity, certainly for the top five, possibly certainly the top three, you're not making the most of it. You've got a lot of effort going in the front end, which always is where you carry your cost. And there's an old saying in agency, when probably like most businesses, you've got a lot of sausage meat going into the sausage machine and not a lot of sausages coming out the bottom. So something, you're doing the first bit right, but something in the middle isn't working. So you need to get that machine apart and figure out what's causing the block, unclog it, and you'll get more sausages out. So there's really to me, there's three stories there. There's, you guys should be shut because, unless you've got a significant lettings book, and Fleet is not a massive lettings market, as you're probably about to show me up in a minute. I'd close your sales operation because you're just hemorrhaging money. And if I was in the top part, I'd be saying, guys, your your expected sales, back to my point earlier on, is very, very high, but we're not converting as much as we should of the opportunities. So what's going on in the middle of that part? We need to get them on the training ground. And the guys in the middle need to decide, right, are we going to have a push and go for the market share, or are we going to solidify our position, stay here, medium-sized business, average figures, but actually it's lifestyle, it's quite good.
Or squeeze the lemon a bit, likewise, squeeze the lemon a bit more and actually make sure that if we've got, as you say, I'm not saying, this is the second option, is let's get more juice out of what we are getting.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the fall through rates. The average is 24.3%, and the big three agents seem to be very close to that. Doesn't seem to be anything there that screams at me. The bigger agents, the smaller agents, the numbers are so much smaller. So again, they can be a bit spiky. Let's just look at price changes. The average number of price checks, 47% of properties are being price reduced. That's quite high. Let's just see if there's anything that's screaming out at me here. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's obvious no one's doing any. No one's doing any. Have you got any clients that are doing reservation agreements in fleet?
No.
No, and again, there's no, ladies and gentlemen, when you can spot them a mile off because they're single digit fall throughs. They really are. Price changes, nothing screaming at me there, but the big agents seem to be just above the average. I'm not a bit concerned that it's at nearly 50%. We'll have a look at that. I mean, that
I
might,
mean, somebody at 86% there needs to have a word with themselves.
yeah, but the numbers are so small. I'm not too
Well,
concerned.
yeah, but that's even worse, isn't it? I mean, are you in such a dire position that you're just jacking the price up to get stuff on? Or have you taken, a few listings from a developer at grossly inflated, unrealistic prices to try and keep your head above water, which tends to be the way. If you're down there and you're struggling with market share, you tend to make decisions that you may not make if you're at the top of the tree. And it's understandable, but same rules apply. If you're going to do business with somebody or try to help them move, then you need to do it properly. You're not reducing 80% of your value of the stock is just quite astonishing.
Well, next screen, we're going to look at which agents are overvaluing. So let's go and have a look at those. Bloody hell, mate. Wow. Wow. This is scary, mate. I'm not seeing this levels for months. Okay, what we got here, ladies and gentlemen. Again, as I said, I appreciate some of you might not watch this show before. And if you're watching this on a phone, God's sake, get off your phone and watch it on a tablet or a laptop or a PC. Okay, what have we got here? So, all the agents, this is what 20EA do, okay? They look at all of your new instructions from the last 12 months and they look at what they think it's worth and then what you put it on the market for. And Bridges have overvalued by 2.85. The McCarthy's 3.41. Selbond's 3.23 and Nicholson's 3.6. And the average is 3.12. That looks like to me, Bryan, that everyone is in this is like overvaluing Central. Everyone's playing that game.
Well, you could, yeah. I mean, I suppose the giveaway is look at the percentage of stock that's being reduced. It's higher than everybody else in the country. It's higher than the
That's what we said. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we've not looked at these stats. We go in block because it's more fun that way. I said to you that the price reductions at 47 were a bit scary, and that's why, because you're all overvaluing. Now you're going to turn around to me and say, Chris, come on, you need to overvalue to get them on the market. So the question is, when are you getting the price reduction? When are you baking that in? And Bryan rightly said, I believe that when the price reduction should never be a surprise, and I think the valuer should be booking in an appointment 2 or 3 weeks at the listing, right, and tell them at the val, right, I think your house is worth 300, but I'm more than happy to try it at 340 or 330. But if we haven't got anywhere in 2 weeks, we're bringing the price down, and then you do the call and you do the visit. Take responsibility. Don't leave it for floss to go from 325 to 320 because you'll just be one of those statistics.
Yeah, you're just kicking the can down the road by doing that, right? You're not actually,
And remember, ladies and gentlemen, you get paid to move people. Unless you're being paid to list, which again I think should be banned. But there you go. That's just what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, all of this stuff, Chris, is a well-trodden path, right? It comes down to the attitude of people going out in the first place. Are you going out to value someone's house? Are you going out to produce a marketing strategy as a partner with these people to help them achieve the goal of moving? Or are you trying to hit the listing number to keep your bosses happy? And get your fees. Well, I had to put, an extra 20% on it because I had to get an extra 0.25% on my fee to keep my boss happy, whatever. I mean, it's not broken. I'm over exaggerating, but there's a lot of ways we could make these things easier that ultimately reset these values to where they are and actually decrease the need to have to make such dramatic changes to pricing, down the line. But it is difficult when you're up against people that are going out trying to win business in a crowded market with relatively low numbers. It's tough. Yeah, we know it's tough. And particularly the biggest problem is there is nothing between any of them in terms of what they do differently. Absolutely nothing. The one thing that is done differently with all of that, why I'm not surprised, I know the market really well, is Bridges are absolutely shit hot at marketing themselves. They have been all along. I applaud them for it. Some people don't like what they do. I think it's innovative. I think it's positive. I think that any business that, shouts about itself and provides value to people in terms of its operation and its guides that it produces and so on is great. There's a lot of old heads in this area in Fleet, a lot of old business heads who are very resistant to change, and that's why it's not a surprise to see those numbers the way they are.
You see, I've had a look at most estate agents' Facebooks, and those that have actually got a Facebook, it's just listing, 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 list. Stop me, listing, listing, listing. Look how good we are. Testimonial, pie chart,
Wow.
guys. No one cares. It's when they go to Rightmove, okay. And again, I know what you're saying about Bridges, and I've got a lot of respect for them, but they do tend to talk about themselves a lot.
Yeah,
And
they do, and that's a bit of a no-no, isn't
okay,
it? It's
and and
yeah,
and again, the magic thing is this. Remember, 36% of homeowners chose their estate agent. That's 3,600 homeowners chose their estate agent based on the local property market, and no one in Fleet is talking about what's happening to Fleet house prices, Fleet rents, yields, what's going to happen to house prices.
yeah, I
And that,
know.
yeah,
What the other thing that is missing from a lot of agencies, and I can speak quite confidently of the market in Fleet because I live in Fleet. So um, there's a group of people, basically our kids, who play football with each other. They used to go to college together. They work together. They're in connection. They're in constant communication with each other, and they're now in their early mid-20s, and they're saving for deposits to buy properties. So they're starting to look, but they need some support. And there's a danger in certain markets that, we don't cater or we don't try to help them. Because I tell you, if my son came home and said, "Oh, look at what Bridges are doing for giving me advice at a 25 to 30-year-old, what I should do in the next 3, 4 years to save money," or whatever it is, I'm just spitballing here. They're going to come and tell me, they're going to come and tell their parents who are the people that will decide on the agencies to use. So there's a lot more content and value that can be added by agents when they're promoting themselves, rather than just award shows and themselves.
yeah, absolutely bang on.
Practical advice are they giving people, and what innovative, value-driven propositions are they adding to enhance their business each year? Because if they're not, if you think about mobile phones and technology and all the stuff we talk about all the time, it seems that every other day you're having to, install the latest version. Well, what's the latest version of your offering? I suspect it's not changed
No,
considerably over the last 10 years, other than the inclusion of a floor plan about 5 years ago and maybe drone photography in the last 12, 24 months.
yeah.
That's not value. I've not met, and I deal with thousands and thousands of homeowners every single month that we talk to, and I don't remember anybody ever saying what the challenge was when we moved last time was the photos weren't very good. Yeah, they don't. The measurements were slightly out. Didn't like the floor plan. I didn't like this. They don't. Those things are immaterial in the someone's move. Yet agents still to this day go on and on and on about it, about the marketing, and they just need to wake up. They've got to wake up at some point.
It scares me that we are in a people business, but we don't actually put our people to the front of our social media.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I, you know, some of these agents haven't even got a meet the team section. And
Yeah.
if they have, it's buried like 4 clicks down.
The other thing about this particular thing that you're showing on here is you look at, I mean, I appreciate it's a period of time, but it's the same story in every single town. There once was an agent, it's almost like a rhyme, right? Or a limerick. There once was an agent that had market share. That market share is no longer. Why is that? If the agent is still there, why has their market share plummeted? And it's the same as shares. Something's gone wrong, or something's not right, or something hasn't worked, which is why a share price has been affected. Okay. The share of a market is similar to that. If your market share is going backwards or static, it's because you're not doing anything differently or better, but your competitors are. And if you don't do something different, someone will come into your town and do it for you.
I mean, certainly if there's any fleet estate agents or letting agents watching this, again, I don't want to turn this into a sales pitch, but I work for agents around the country. I only work for one agent per town, and I show you how to put that information, this sort of data and other sort of data about house prices and rents into a palatable form that you can post out on social media to attract people to you. Because if you want people to be attracted to you, you have to create content, because this is where their eyeballs are. You have to create content which is attractive to them. And talking about yourself is not attractive. Yes, you should put your listings on. Of course you should. But you should be putting other types of content out there. And again, ladies and gentlemen, let me give some value to you. Put the word fleet on everything on your plate, on your photographs, because as you're scrolling through, I live there. And the second thing is this: join local Facebook groups, because the only people that join fleet Facebook groups, Brian, are people who live in.
Fleet.
And where do 100% of fleet homeowners live?
Fleet.
There it is. So you've got to turn around and say, well, I can't, they won't let me post stuff or share stuff into groups. Of course they won't let you post stuff into bloody Facebook groups. No wonder, because all you're doing is, hi, we're brilliant, come and use us, we're ace, and here's a listing. No, the true art of Facebook groups is this: the face of the firm, the branch manager or the boss, joins the local groups and then posts, doesn't share, post in local groups, and you post local property market data. Not, we've sold 10 houses this week. It's, did you know that 3-bedroom semis in XYZ estate have gone up
I'm
by.
going to. I'm just going to cut across you deliberately there because you're absolutely right. And I'll give you an example, right? What I should be seeing now or hearing about now is how to optimize the value of my home in fleet. If I want to move in 2025, then I should do it now. What tips can I have to increase the value of my house? We're in a cost of living crisis. We have been for a while. But yet what I get through my door is, do you want a free valuation? No, thanks. I had one through the door last week from an agent on that list who's not at the top of that list. Would you like a free valuation? No, thanks. I mean, that is almost insulting now to my intelligence when Zoopla have been marketing themselves for the last 10 years, certainly the last 5 years, about finding out the value of your home online. Yeah. Why are we still putting things through people's doors saying, do you want a free valuation?
Oh,
No.
Landlords wanted.
Oh, please.
Oh.
I mean, wow.
Yeah, buy to let deal. Again, if anyone wants it, if they text me on the following number, 07950 147 572, text me the word free stuff, and I will send you 8 hours worth of videos on how to do it. And if you dare say I ain't got time to do that, then get off your backside, switch off Netflix, because you're more than happy to binge watch that. 8 hours. I won't text you. I'll just text you. I'll delete your number off the system. Just if you want it. Okay, so right, I'm getting off my high horse.
Okay.
Right, how close did the agents get to the original asking price? Bridges got 2.5% off the original asking price. McCarthy Holden, wow, 5.98% off the original asking price. Selborne got really well. They got so Selborne are getting a decent amount for their homeowners. So that again, it wasn't was Selborne rising? Let's just have a quick.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were.
Yeah. I mean, that's screaming at me. Let's have a look. Yeah, I mean, look, in Jan they had a good. Okay, that was. I don't know what they did there to get 30%, but well done, Selburn, on that one. You're doing really well on your stats there. Nicholson's 2.86% less than the original asking price, and Waterford. So again, if I was Selburn's there, I'd be really shouting about the fact is that we get more for your home. And again, there's some stats here which basically, if we all put on the same house, what would you get for it? And again, there are some good performances there, and there are some not so good performances. Let's move on to how long a property takes to sell. So looking at the top agents here, again, let's just remind ourselves. So McCarthy Holdens, they're the number one agent in terms of size. They're taking on average 63 days. Selborne's 41 days. Vickery's 65. Hampton's, Bridges 62. And then the pink line is then how long it takes you to get the sale through. So again, I mean, Labram homes are taking 141 days from new instruction to completion, whilst Hamptons are up at 221. The average length of time a property takes to sell in the last year is 63 days compared to 58 days the October 22 to October 23. This 63 is October 23 to October 24. Nothing screaming there, mate, is there really? Not
No,
really.
no,
Uh,
it's
Pretty
again,
average.
another well-trodden path.
Let's look at the rental market, and the average rent in 2019 was 1,131. What's the average rent? We'll just move that to October. There we go. 1,532. That's a big jump, isn't it? Yeah,
Yep.
interesting. Right. Okay. Let's just bring it back. There's obviously not a student market there because we normally would have a spike in October and November. Let's look at again. This just gives us a flavour of trends. New instructions. 99% of the time are just relisted stock. So the more new instructions gives us an indication of what stock levels they're doing. So that again, pretty average. Then I think great there. I mean, bit of a drop again. Let's ignore the drop off because it's the long trend that we're looking at. Let's look at Bridges. Well done, Bridges. You're growing. That's good. Well done. That's really good. Honey lettings dropping off. Waterfords growing. McCarthy Holden up then down. Open rent. Okay, so again, look at that. In 2019, they were taking around 5-6% of the market. At the moment, it's around 15, which is very similar to what the national figures are. Do remember, ladies and gentlemen, open rent are the same size nationally as Romans, Connell Sequence, Belvoir, Northwood, Martin and Co., Leaders Romans, Lomans,
I know,
plus the
I know a
four.
landlord, Chris. I know a landlord. I know a number of landlords in Fleet. I know a landlord in Fleet who's just instructed open rent because his service from the other high street agents in that list above them has been so bad that he just said, "Why am I paying for all this?"
You
You
know,
know,
open rent is that you would need the top 14, 15 agents to be the same size as open rent. So whilst the number of properties, a lot of people think landlords are selling up, and yes, there's an increase of 43% of them compared to pre-COVID levels, but a big chunk of them, and again, this is a stat that blows my mind, that in 2023 53%, 52% of the properties that came onto the market with open rent had previously been rented through a high street letting agent. That's scary. What the hell are you doing in your rental proposition that's keeping your landlords? Because I bet you a pound to a penny, most of them are just ringing them up with, all you do is you ring them up with problems,
yeah,
don't you? Are
yep.
you actively managing your landlords? Are you sitting down with them doing portfolio management, or are you just basically correcting the rent, skimming your 10% off, and just ringing them up with problems?
Well, I
Again,
tell you what, on the back of the budget today, they're going to have to improve their standards because costs are going to go up for landlords, obviously with the increase of stamp duty on second homes. That's going to bite in. That's over doubling, so that's going to have an impact in available profit from an asset.
in,
So
in
yeah, you're going to be under more scrutiny for the better serve for value of for money. Um, so now's the time to have a look at it.
Indeed. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a letting agent and you're looking to change your marketing proposition, then I can only work with one of you. If you just want to pick up the phone to me, you can send me a message on LinkedIn, or you can ring me on 07950 147 572. But if you're not worried about your social media and you don't want to grow, then that's absolutely fine. Just ignore me. Right, Brian, I think that's about it, mate. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I need a new light because my lighting's gone completely kaput after being on here. This is strange. But final thoughts on what I said at the beginning, Chris. Confidence, right? It's the time of year to start. No, if you've been in agency for more than 12 months, you'll know what's going to happen now towards the run of weeks we've got ahead of us. So get on top of it. Get in front of your clients. Definitely spend some time with them. Give them confidence because there's a lot of reasons to be confident in the market. And try to give them the confidence not to leave you over Christmas because if they go, they're not coming back. And obviously, the Christmas New Year period has always been good for online activity, blah 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 blah. So don't let people say to you, "Oh, I want to come off the market because we've got Christmas decorations up. We don't want people trudging around the house." That's a myth. The agent is the gatekeeper. The agent can control that based on the client's wishes. So if your clients are worried about it, give them some comfort, give them some confidence that it's not going to be a problem.
Indeed, mate. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. We'll probably see you early next year for the next year out because we're on like a rotation, a rota. But more importantly, thank you for watching this show. Thank you for the feedback. Remember, all the graphs are available to download on YouTube or on the podcast. Again, not to be used not to be used on social media. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, Bryan, and thank you for watching.